Welcome back to a brand new episode live on YouTube of Defiant Productions. I am Don, the hardest working nobody in Bitcoin. That is Troy, the hardest working nobody in crypto. We are here to talk everything Bitcoin and crypto. We are officially less than 48 hours away, give or take somewhere between 24 and 48 from the Bitcoin halving, where the supply will be cut in half, where the supply shock will set in, where the real moves in the bull market will begin to start happening. Don't be scared and freaked out by these recent moves in the market. As we sit right now, I'm looking at my screen, and we actually just crested 63,000. We were trading between 62.5 and 63 for most of the morning, and as we went live, we hit 63. We're actually at 63,140. Me and Troy were talking about the fear and greed index being neutral. So we're back from a extreme greed to greed, now neutral. I'm seeing a lot of people capitulating on Twitter. Alleged Bitcoin maxis, alleged Bitcoin believers saying, I'm selling everything, I can't take it, it's going to zero. So we're weeding out the weak hands, and the strong hands are holding. What do you think, Troy? How are you feeling about the market? How are you feeling about your portfolio?
So you said the halving is in less than 48 hours?
Yeah, according to CoinMarketCap, it says 1 day, 10 hours.
So the halving,
so we're 215 blocks away.
So the halving's on 420, which is pretty funny.
Actually, we're gonna be probably shy of that.
Yeah.
We're gonna. It looks like it's gonna be April 19th around 11 something p.m. We're gonna just miss it.
So I know why they call it the halving. My portfolio took a halving.
Cut your portfolio in half.
Yeah. I'm in high beta, high risk assets. As you know, like I'm more down the altcoin rabbit hole, but I mean, it wasn't a 50% haircut, but it's up there. I'm glad I took some profits when the market was max greedy on some of my alts, convert them into a lower beta, majors like Ethereum and Bitcoin. But I mean, I'm sitting tight. Like I built a risk tolerance to the point where when we do see these corrections, I can tolerate them, right? If I just blindly came in the market for the first time and I'm, got in right before this dump, which we're going to talk about why we believe that the market dumped, I would probably be shitting my pants. But unfortunately, or fortunately, I've done my due diligence. I built my conviction, and I'm really just sitting patient, man. This is where the money flows from the impatient to the patient. The leverage traders are getting washed out. They're getting capitulated, and the smart money is buying up the assets. They're buying up the assets from the low IQ retail degen leverage traders, and I don't want to talk about. I did get liquidated on one of my positions, but it was a small play. But I've identified my loss on it, so it's not like it's, I'm taking my portfolio and doing a huge leverage trade on it. It was just a small portion, one of my trading wallets, but it's part of the game. No one saw this really happening, but we were overbought in that short time period. So as long as you took some profits on your portfolio, you'll feel a little bit better. I'm happy I took 2% profits on my portfolio, which isn't much, but I'm training my mind and being disciplined in everything. So I'm doing good.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about what kind of precipitated this recent drop. Although I will also say that traditionally, again, we were messaging back and forth, and I was kind of telling you that like history doesn't necessarily repeat, but it oftentimes rhymes. Typically, right around the halving, we get a dip. Like it's not completely crazy for there to be a dip right before the halving or right around the halving, or even sometimes a little bit after the halving. It just happened to be precipitated by an event that necessarily I don't think you could have predicted to be the catalyst for it. What we're speaking about is what happened on, I think that was April 13th, Saturday, April 13th, when Iran sent those missiles to Israel in a overwhelmingly theatrical response. I think it's safe to say that was more show than actual like war starting. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how I feel about the World War III narrative, and I think I'll save that for a little bit. We'll talk about that. But I think anybody that knows anything about the situation knows that the intention of Iran to actually attack Israel was not really there. It was more of just a show of like a response because there was something that occurred prior. Israel attacked, I believe it was a couple of high-ranking people in Iran's military maybe that got killed in some sort of bombing that Israel did. So Iran had to show their force by sending these rockets. 99% of them got shot down by the Iron Dome. And just think about how insane. This only happens in a fiat system. This only happens in a fiat system where you send multi-million-dollar rockets and drones knowing they're going to get shot down and do absolutely nothing damage-wise, and you're just sending all of that over into that. Just literally wasting millions and millions of dollars. You only do that in a system where you can just like push buttons and print money, right? If you have sound hard money that's scarce, you don't do that. If you can't replace that as easy as you can in a fiat system, you're not sending them rockets. So when we say like Bitcoin fixes war and Bitcoin can like help solve like these perpetual wars and this never-ending wars, it's because these wars only are perpetual and never-ending because they're engaging in a system where you can just print money and I can send $100 billion rocket over, it can get shot down, and then I just make another $100 billion rocket and send that as well. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thought process in regards to.
I think a lot of people don't realize that or take that into consideration. You know, like it's hard to, especially if you're so trapped in the fiat mindset and you don't really understand what's going on. And people are like, Bitcoin solves war. You're like, oh, you're so biased. Like you're such a.
Or no, you're pumping your bags. You're only saying that because you want Bitcoin's price to go up forever. It's like, no, like do some history research, right?
And that goes into the next topic, which, you know, we can tie it into what we're saying now with the halving and making Bitcoin even more scarce. And, you know, it'll make people more think about their decisions and their actions, you know, governments on how they you know, react to war and stuff. So, and that's the event that's happening in less than 48 hours, which
Bitcoin is programmable. We know the supply. We know how the supply is going to be released. We know how much is out there now. We know how much is going to be out there in the history of the ecosystem. So you can't double spend it. You can't counterfeit it. You can't fake it. You can't print more of it. There is what there is, and that's all. So, you know, to kind of tie a bow on this point, talking about the fiat system, it's no coincidence that, I mean, think about August of 1971. What were we just getting out of or like still quasi engaged in at that time?
the gold standard.
No, like besides just
The
that,
war?
what was going on at the time in the world at that time? What macro event was happening during that time period? Rich, you want to chime in? So August of 1971, when we got off the gold standard, what macro event was occurring during that time period? Late 60s, early 70s. What was going on during that time?
Is that the gas prices when we were in the gas?
What war?
When the oil crunch?
You're close.
Or Vietnam?
Vietnam. The Vietnam War was going on. A war that we overwhelmingly, I would say, probably lost. I would say most people think that we didn't win. We didn't win. We didn't win that war. I don't know if we're necessarily lost, but at the very best, it was a tie.
Yeah, that's the joke in the one movie. Where it's like it was a tie.
Yeah, we spent a shitload of money, and we realized that like we can't just do that perpetually. Mm-hmm. But like war can be profitable when you're at the control of the money printer and you can just print to infinity. But when you're spending money in liquidating scarce assets to fund this war, it's difficult to win the war and it's difficult to continue doing that. So we realized, well, we have this money backed by gold. And again, I said this before, during the Vietnam War, we were already off the gold standard before we made it official.
Yeah.
So we were printing money to fund that war before people knew that we were doing it.
Well, I'm also bullish. I'm bullish risk assets because
I thought you were going to say I'm bullish Vietnam War.
no, I'm like I said, like I'm bullish risk assets. If you can print money, where's that money going to go? It's going to flow into assets. It's going to flow into Bitcoin. It's going to flow into these higher risk assets. Yeah. So I think war is actually bullish in the stock market and crypto market, but obviously, like, there's going to be consequences.
Equities are in my top 5
Mhm.
to own, not because I think equities are great, or I think there's a lot of
I
shitty
know where you're
companies.
going.
I think there's so many shitty companies, honestly. There's only a handful that really have a lot of value. Overwhelmingly shitty, right?
Mhm.
But you would be absolutely, if you are not in some way, shape, or form sitting here right now watching this podcast, even if you're like, dude, F these dudes, F Bitcoin, F crypto, it's a scam. Well, even if you feel that way, right? If you're not exposed in some way, shape, or form to equities, you're doing it wrong in this
Yeah.
system.
Because they print money.
And I'm
and-
saying that as a Bitcoin maxi.
Yeah.
You're going to get a rate of return that's just about guaranteed because the printing goes to the equities, right? I mean, the richest people in this country have large boatloads of stocks that they own. You know what I'm saying? Like Bezos, Zuckerberg, Musk, like those dudes' net worths, that like 3 of the top 5, top 10 richest guys in the world have enormous portfolios that are heavily tied to stock, right? So their companies are worth so much because money gets printed and it goes right into equities, right? Look at what happened during the pandemic. They printed all that money, people spent it, went into companies, went into equities. So I just think equities will continue to print. The problem is it's not the best place to outpace inflation. You're just not going to go backward. Like if you're not investing in equities at all, like I don't know. If you don't invest in equities, you don't invest in real estate, you don't invest in crypto or Bitcoin, and you don't have like fine art, like what are you doing? How you're getting killed. You are not going to make it. You are not going to make it.
Yeah. And another thing I want to talk about, and this is more of a technical thing. I was looking at the charts yesterday, and this goes back into the halving. When the last halving in 2016, it took 272 to 278 days before the market the Bitcoin had reached its all-time high.
We've already done that here.
And exactly, so that's where I'm trying to get. And then 2017 or 2020, May I believe was the third halving, and that was 232 days. So it was about a 35 to 40 day decrease from each halving. So I think we've already broken all-time highs slightly, and now we had this sell-off. Do you think because it's different? We never seen this before. So like now I'm calculating. Okay, well after the halving and the next day, it may take 200 days before we actually break that 74K level confirmation. Or what do you think on that?
No.
As a technical perspective.
No, I don't think that's.
You think it'll be a shorter?
I think, yeah.
Where do you think
sure.
the market is? Because a lot of people watching this, they
there's
want to know
just
where the
no
market
way.
is.
Well,
Where
okay.
do you think the market will be?
Let's go back. Let's peel that one back.
All right,
let's peel that
Peel
one
that
back.
orange.
Because I'm getting frustrated a
No
lot.
pun. Pull that orange.
Yeah. I'm getting frustrated with the amount of like panic and the amount of like constant. I mean, and I say this as somebody who literally has the charts open in front, and we're at 63.8 right now, by the way.
We're actually pumping a little bit.
But we're up 2.37% in the last hour. As I say what I'm about to say, which seems kind of like an oxymoron, but like we do too much like chart watching.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of it. I mean, I'm looking at the charts constantly. But what separates me from most people that look at the charts, I don't react with my portfolio when I look at the chart. Whether it's going up or it's going down, I'm not buying, I'm not selling. The only buying I'm doing is on like the last couple of days. Like I added sats the last couple of days. Like I was right around that 59. I got a little bit of
Did you
sats
get
at that.
59?
Yeah, of course. I think I did. I'm not sure if I
think?
caught
What do you
it.
mean you think?
Well, it was when it was in the low 60s and it was going. I got it. I
It's hard.
executed a trade when I had messaged you in the group chat, and I said we hit 59. We've hit 59.8.
It happened for a second.
Yeah, so I'm not. I was right around then. I was executing when I was
Yeah.
watching it because I was anticipating it like going below and like maybe even getting like 58, 57, and it hit 59.8 and went back up into the 60s. So I got that local bottom. I was somewhere around there when I added a little bit to my portfolio. And like I say this, like the only moves I'm gonna do, the only moves I'm gonna make are when we see 10% plus days of red in a bull market. That's the only action that you'll see me do, and that'll be adding. Like when we're pumping like 40, 50%, I'm not selling. I'm not selling any Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin's not getting sold. I'm only adding, but I'm not adding when it's pumping Like when Bitcoin makes a move from 70 to 90, I'm not adding there. Like that's,
no.
I mean, the people adding are adding to our portfolios. Like that's what's happening. But I'm only adding, and people are always asking. Like that's the question that I'm kind of answering here is like, when is a good time to buy? When nobody else wants to buy, that's when you buy. When everybody else is like, oh shit, and you're looking on Twitter and people are saying, I'm selling everything. The charts are showing me a reversal, so I'm like that. I actually want to jump on Twitter and I want to show you this because this was actually like I was in the parking lot and I saw this tweet and I retweeted it and I think it's important to share because it's really hammering home what I'm talking about right now. So. This guy, and again, he's a .eth guy, so that'll tell you everything you need to know about this Bitcoin guy. I'm not joking. I sold everything. Charts are effed. Wake up, sheeple. And he quote tweeted himself and said, look at the charts for ETH, BTC, various alts, and Bitcoin. I'm out. And this was tweeted 14 hours ago, right? So I quote tweeted this. I said, good morning, because, that's how you do things on Twitter. Good morning. This is the type of mindset in investing that it prevents 99% of the population to build wealth. You know who the top traders are in every platform? The ones who are dead. Don't be a sheep and sell good assets. You acquire more when they go on sale, or next best, do nothing. Because your long-term time horizon, your time horizon should be, and I put long with like 17 G's after.
Yeah.
Like these guys, they're dangerous.
I feel like the people that are acting like that, they're fully invested, right? Like, when you have no money to buy the dip, like, yeah, you're probably going to be like, shit. Like, now you got to sit through this, wait for the prices to go back up. Like, if you have this is the most important part in crypto. Don't be fully allocated to crypto assets. Always have some dry powder, some cash. Whether it's tokenized cash, like a stable coin, always have some dry powder. Because when opportunities like that present itself, you're not going to be so down on yourself that the market's reversing. You're going to look at it objectively and deploy some capital. And that's what separates the winners from the losers. The people that could buy when it hurts to buy, and sell when it hurts to sell.
You also have to be honest with yourself on who and what you are. You can't be this guy when the bull market is raging that I'm all in. This is in like you're on social media engagement farming about how big of a maxi you are, and like this is the next best thing. We're never selling. It's going to 1 million, hold forever, and then you lose like 25% of your portfolio, and you're like, oh, now I'm selling. I'm gonna get a better price. It's like, no, that ain't how it works. You ain't a god trader.
Yeah.
You're not selling at 60, and you're not gonna catch it at 50. You're probably selling at 60, and we may never see 58 again. Maybe we do. But you probably ain't gonna. Your mindset already was one way there.
Yeah.
So if you get that lower price, that means it has to go back even farther than it was when you shit your pants the first time.
Yeah.
So you're definitely not buying at 40. Who are you kidding?
Well, there's a saying: if you're not gonna buy today, you're not gonna buy tomorrow. So train yourself to like be uncomfortable. Train your mind to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's the winner mindset in investing. And the cliche saying is buy low, sell high. It really is harder said than done. Really is. But
it's not really.
But if you can train yourself and be disciplined.
It's not hard.
But if you've never done it before, it's going to be hard. If you do it on a consistent basis.
People are just overcomplicating things.
Yeah.
If you're investing in a market, you're buying when it's red. And if you're going to sell, if you're a seller, if you're trying to make fiat profits and that's your goal, which again, if that's your thing, God bless, but your plan should be when it's green, you hit the sell button. When it's red, you hit the buy button. If you can't do those two things, get the fuck out of the market.
Yeah.
It ain't for you. Stop wasting your time and stop making this thing take longer than it needs to take because your dumb money's in here messing things up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, these idiots on Twitter, I'm just like, in some accounts that I've been following for a while, and I'm just like, I can't believe that they're either engagement farming, which is possible. They're either engagement farming or they're just that stupid and they don't belong in the market.
A positive note is that when these idiots, you'd say, do tweet this stuff, that's the best way to filter out your Twitter. We need corrections because there's so many trash accounts that I thought were good that I unfollowed once I seen how they reacted to this little sell-off. So, that's huge. Like, because if you're following the wrong accounts, you're gonna make shitty decisions.
My core people. They show their true colors.
Yeah.
Like there's just like we're shaking. We're buying. They're literally screenshotting buys.
Yeah.
where you see like I'm putting my money where my mouth is. We buy the red
Yeah,
days.
I respect
This is
that.
what we do. We buy the red days.
Yeah.
There's a $5,000 buy order. It's just like, and then you have these other idiots. I'm sorry. And again, a lot of those ones don't post their sells, so you don't even know if they're really doing it.
Yeah.
And that's even dangerous because like if you have a large following, like somebody's watching that and they hit the sell order because you said that.
Yeah.
And that's sad. That's sad.
Yeah. You want to go into, now that we have the biggest Bitcoin event happening in the next day, do you want to, for the people that don't know, I mean, most people probably do, but do you want to dive into exactly what the halving is, or?
Yeah, quickly, I will just
For the Bitcoin Maxi, by the way.
Yeah, I will. I'll just say that this is an event that happens every 4 years in the Bitcoin ecosystem. They call it an epoch. We had one. The first one was in 2012. The second one was in 2016. The third one was in 2020. And our fourth one is coming up in around 1 day and 10 hours. And we will go from 6.25 Bitcoin per block. And blocks are mined about every 10 minutes. So that roughly comes out to about every day around 900 Bitcoin is released into the ecosystem. And in less than 48 hours, that will change to 3.125, which will equate to 450 on average every single day. So the amount that gets released into the ecosystem that the miners are mining, and you got to remember, not all of the coins the miners mine are being released. They're holding on to some to pay for costs. So not all 900, not all 450 will be or did or will be going into the ecosystem. And we've been talking about in this podcast for a couple of months how much the ETFs buy up on a daily basis, which has been more than the 900 already. So now you have these ETFs that are going to be going to the market looking for Bitcoin, and the amount that's going to be coming into the supply for them to be buying is going to be cut in half. So simple supply and demand economics should tell you if that's occurring, that price needs to go up to accommodate the buyers.
Yeah.
So that typically occurs. We typically don't see that supply shock happen right away. It usually happens like in the summer. So usually you have the halving occur in the spring, and then you see the supply shock really take effect in the summer. And again, we've talked about the fact that, you know, things are different this cycle because we've already hit an all-time high prior to the Bitcoin halving, and that's never happened before. It's always been roughly 200-something days after. So we are kind of like in uncharted territory for sure. And I think personally that the Bitcoin halving is going to really be like the the starting gun for like, all right, what's next? Like now we're gonna go and see like where this thing goes, because the time's ticking after the halving now of like, all right, now it's like the bull market. We have less bull market in front of like this is the point where like we're kind of around the halfway point. Like we're about halfway away from where the bear market was and halfway away from where the bull market will end. So like we're right in that sweet spot.
And we have elections, so I think November.
Yeah.
And I noticed a trend around November is when we start to really take off. So I expect, this summer to be pretty bullish. We might have another major correction around elections, but I think by the end of the year we're gonna be definitely near over 80K. Personally, I think so. I think Ethereum 12 to 15K. I know people like their price predictions, but I'm excited. This is needed. This is healthy for the market, and you're kidding yourself if you think this is unhealthy, right?
Well, you mentioned Ethereum, so I will update the viewers
let's hear it.
since pretty soon I will have some more Ethereum myself.
So you'll be an ETH maxi now.
No.
Come on.
No. Yesterday, there was a big court hearing in regards to the DCG Gemini bankruptcy case. Okay. A settlement has officially been reached and approved by the court. Tentatively, funds will be released in May or early June. Expect a formal update from Gemini on refund timeline. Happy for everyone who was impacted by this Gemini earn mess for the last 19 months. Gemini Trust tweeted the following. Earn update. Yesterday, Genesis filed a revised proposed order approving the global settlement among Genesis, Gemini, and other creditors in the Genesis bankruptcy. This completes the submissions to the bankruptcy court with respect to the settlement, which will proceed for consideration by the bankruptcy court on an uncontested basis today, Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. Today's hearing was held before Judge Lane at 11 a.m. Full hearing and agenda and dial information can be found at the following website. So what that means is this long drawn-out process since November of 2022 has finally concluded in the courts. And Gemini will be releasing 97% of assets in kind to people who had their money on Gemini Earn. So if you had 1 Bitcoin, you'll get 0.97 Bitcoin back initially. If you had 1 ETH, you'll get 0.97 back for every ETH and all coordinating assets. And the last 3% will be given back sometime in the future. Gemini is giving the initial, and DCG will be covering that extra 3%, I guess. And the understanding is sometime around the end of May, so the next month and a half to early June, I'll be getting back around 2.36 ETH, which is
it just ETH? Do we have anything else?
That's all I had. That's all I had.
What are you gonna do
there.
with the ETH?
I will initially hold the ETH. I will initially hold the ETH, and then the plan will be to top of market liquidate that.
Yeah.
And spin that into Bitcoin and probably like help replenish some cash reserves to take care of some life stuff that I need to take care of because I still live in a fiat system, and I ain't spending Bitcoin, so I'll definitely spend the ETH. So that I've talked about that on the podcast. People that are watching our podcast know the mistake that I made back in November of 2022 when FTX failed. I had ETH that I didn't give a shit about sitting there in Gemini Earn getting 4%, and I waited too long to try to get it back.
A day too long.
Thought it was gone, but it's coming back.
That's
That's
crazy.
something like right now, I think, let's look at
What's the
ETH's
value?
price. ETH is
How
at
many?
3,000, 2.36. So that's, what's that, 6,000, another third, around 7,000 something United States. And who knows what the price will be in the next month and a half
What?
of ETH.
Right before we
2.36.
got on the Zoom call, things pumped a little bit.
Yeah. It's,
Well, the Wall Street market opened too. Did you see that interview with Anthony Pompliano when he was
which one?
on Squawk Box, I believe, just recently?
Andrew Ross Sorkin, who was grilling him
Yeah,
about
Peter
being a-
Schiff. I didn't know Peter Schiff's his uncle, or his nephew is Anthony Pompliano.
I got to look that up. I don't think I
Peter
knew
Schiff
that.
said my nephew tagged Anthony Pompliano was on CNBC.
I don't know if he's just saying that. I have to look at
Maybe
that.
as a joke or
But
something.
while we're speaking about equities,
They're
like
good
this
friends.
is the first. They are friends, which is good. I mean, they think completely opposite, but they have good debates, which is good. And I think Peter Schiff is just that's branding for him that he hates Bitcoin so much. But that's another conversation. The Dow is up 271 points, Nasdaq 54, S&P 22, which is super surprising to me, I guess, because like we found out this week because Powell spoke that basically, if you read between the lines, that the Fed they probably should have kept raising. They probably shouldn't have paused because inflation has definitely not subsided and it's going back in the other direction again.
Yeah.
So I think like in January of this year, the markets were baking in at least 3 rate reductions, at least, potentially more. And if you look at the betting markets now, there's a 52% chance we only get 1. So it's 50-50 that we only get 1, and it's 11% we get 0.
Yeah.
So that's a drastic change, and that's only because the Fed reacted like and I think they were honestly I think it's safe to say that they were influenced by this being an election year and not wanting to influence it, and inadvertently they're going to be influencing it.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is. Let's really quick. I got a couple of tweets that kind of are related to each other I want to talk about. Here's a tweet that I saw this morning that I wanted to cover really quick. It's good, short, but it's good. Instead of moving energy to where industry is, move industry to where the energy is. Makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin enables the build out of energy generation prior to a consumer. Energy initiative industry follows next, then the people. This is how global society shifts without force. So if you think about the beginning of times, where did people settle? Where did people settle at the beginning of times? Like
Near water.
Yes, cities were the biggest cities were created next to the water because it made it easy to get to the location because people were traveling by ships. It made it easy to transport things, import things, and stuff like that, right? So this tweet is kind of saying that like the next shift in population could and should be towards energy hubs. Places where you can use cheaper energy, and places that the climates are warmer, you can use what?
Solar.
Solar. So you use the solar energy, which is cheap, super cheap, to mine Bitcoin, right? And we've already talked about before how Bitcoin uses excess energy that's wasted 5 to 8%. We had that great conversation with that girl in that Twitter Spaces a while back, how she told us like between 5 and 8%, like Niagara Falls over here is wasting and emitting 5 to 8% of their energy. It's just wasted into the ecosystem. We had a great conversation last week. I'm not going to dox them because I don't want to say somebody's name that without telling them that we're going to talk about them on a public forum. But I had somebody come into this podcast last week that Rich introduced me to, and he's
was he on
local politician. He is a local politician. He is a local politician, and I had spoke to him briefly about like the Bitcoin mining stuff that was going on, and he was involved in that because it was in his district. So I was kind of educating him in some of the stuff, and I told him that for me, it had really nothing to do with defending U.S. Bitcoin and the Bitcoin mining. For me, it was like, hey, we can have this great conversation. I've offered my services to the city of Niagara Falls through a different local politician that I would be willing to speak in front of city council, in front of the mayor, in front of county legislature, whoever, to say, hey, you have this emission of energy that's occurring right here in our backyard that's getting wasted into the ethos that you could harness that and start using that to put money on the balance sheets of the city of Niagara Falls. If the city of Niagara Falls got into the industry of Bitcoin mining, I said, El Salvador does that. I said, Miami does that. There's a spot in Mississippi that does it. Some of these are Democrat. It's not all red. Like you got red down in Florida, but the place in Mississippi is a blue spot, blue governor. So it's like crossing party lines. It's not got to be this, got to be that. It's like, no, this is what's best for the area. And I had a brief conversation with him. He seemed to be very open. Like it was, but those are the types of things. Like as a Bitcoiner, as a Bitcoin maxi, like when you get those opportunities, like that's how you advance things. It's not me jumping on Twitter saying, hey, buy Bitcoin. Hey, Bitcoin's the best. Everybody, number go up. It's like, no, those are the conversations, and those are the people that we need to reach and have conversations with, open their mind to radically change the way that we do things for the better. Because you say Bitcoin fixes this. Well, Bitcoin doesn't fix shit. If I sit here and just say, oh, we're at 73,000. This is great. Let's show a picture of my portfolio. Like that does nothing. I'm not in it. Like I said, I came for the money, staying for the revolution. And those are the types of conversations that are important to have with people that don't understand, especially in a dying city like Niagara Falls that we are in. We were just joking about how it smells in the city because you got a big landfill that's like right across the street from where we're filming because the city's a shithole, right? Bad politics for 45 years of Republicans and Democrats, both parties. And I talked about that with him, and he agreed. So, like, this is the type of things that needs to be enacted, and we need to reach the minds of the people that are not Bitcoiners to see the benefits of what this can do and look at the case studies of a place like El Salvador, who's almost eradicated crime. I mean, you look at El Salvador 4 or 5 years ago, nobody wanted to go there. You had MS-13 there. Like, people are getting killed. Nobody wanted to go. Now you have a complete Bitcoin community. Something like 10,000 Bitcoiners have moved there just in 2024. Max Kaiser's like got this big campaign going of just moving Bitcoiners into El Salvador, and they have a whole spot that just interacts in Bitcoin. You got the volcanoes, you got the Bitcoin bonds, you have El Salvador buying 1 Bitcoin every single day, and they're in the GDP of that country just outpacing all these other developed countries. Look what Miami's doing. Miami's doing something similar where they're accepting Bitcoin. They've embraced and you talked about potentially moving there. Like Crypto Central in the United States is Miami. Mm-hmm. Like they got the model, and it's like you got our backyard. You have this energy source. Niagara Falls, you have a power authority that's drawing energy from that, and they're wasting and emitting energy. What if they took that 5 to 8% and they started using that to mine Bitcoin, put Bitcoin on the balance sheets, and got out of this deficit and started actually making this side? And if you want to do a quick Google search, if you don't live in this area, Google search Niagara Falls, USA, Google search Niagara Falls, Canada, and look at how Canada looks, and look at how the United States looks. It's embarrassing.
If you just in my thing, and I'm a solar power guy. I have solar panels on my roof. It pays for 80% of my electricity, and I think that when you talk about radically changing like an economic structure in this country, and it's blocked all the freaking time, there is so much. And people are like, well, you live in Niagara Falls. Why do you have solar panels? It's snowy. I said, yeah, okay. There's a couple months where I don't generate much, but the other 10 months I'm generating, and then because I generate more than I use. I give it back to the national grid, and I get a credit in my account every fall. So even the month, I always get my credit the month that I know I'm not generating solar. I designed it that way, and I'm on a lease. So my lease is up in a few years, and I'll probably have them come give me new ones. But every house should get a credit to put solar panels on their roof. Every city like Niagara Falls that has brownfields that they can't use for 8,000 years because of chemical dumps and shit, why on earth are you not putting solar farms in? Like, I'm sorry. Like, and I know, oh, they're ugly. Like, there's one in town in Niagara. You drive by it, and somebody put up a sign that says, they're ugly. I didn't even know the solar panels were there until the guy put up the ugly sign. I'm like, they're not next to the road. They're off the thing. They're not affecting, like, there's migratory birds and all that. Like, but ultimately, like, when you guys talk about radical changes, like, this country could be generating a ridiculous amount of electricity, because we're going to need it for all this other stuff that they want us to do. And why? But again, like, the politics of this is the same crap that interferes with the stuff that interferes with all the Bitcoin mining and everything else. It's the same bullshit all the time.
You're right, and I definitely agree. And I think politics are shit, and I think that's a whole nother conversation we don't have time to get into. However, I do believe. I think politics is flawed, but I think people, especially the guy that you introduced me to, like, I looked him up after, and I saw, like, his background. If I just would have looked and saw that and, like, his political, I may have thought different. The conversation we had, without me even knowing who he was, I got a good vibe from him. He seems like a genuine guy.
I agree.
Even though he's a politician, and I understand that there's ways you have to act and move when you're a politician to survive. Completely understand that. But I think, like, somebody like him, is you can have a conversation with him, and if they see and learn and educate and understand, like, this could actually be something that could benefit the greater good, and you get more people that think like him, that's how things change.
That stuff's only going to work at the local level. You got to start in your local communities, your local guys, because those are the guys that can push it, because they're not getting a big payout from some corporate.
I 100% agree with you, because, like I said, right now you got Miami. You got Mississippi. There's mining that happens in Washington State. Yep. So these little spots need to be successful for other little spots to look and say, hey, we're having this fiscal issue in our city. Look at Miami. Look at Mississippi. Look at Washington. Look what they're doing in those little podunk spots that are generating revenue, and it's costing them nothing to do so. Who taught?
It creates a hub, too, of people that want to move there. So it's not only creating industry and jobs.
We could be crypto Bitcoin Northeast. Like, Niagara Falls could turn into a crypto Bitcoin hub. It could create jobs. Not only create jobs, but it could have the smartest minds in the industry collaborating in this area, going to the convention center, getting a spot, like having a convention at the casino, going to Buffalo, investing in the local sports teams. Look, there's so much potential if somebody could just see the vision and get educated. Not even like somebody like me, but I could bring other people that are even smarter than me into the equation to educate people to see. And like I said to him, it's not about this is the way to do it. It's like you need to have a conversation with somebody like me and then somebody else smarter to say, oh, there's this other option that exists. Maybe we put some time and effort and energy into researching it. I'm not saying do this or else. I'm
at
saying
least look into it.
Let's look at this as a potential. Because guess what? The last 45 years, all the shit you've done, it's insanity. You're doing the same shit over and over again, expecting a different result. Niagara Falls is a shithole. I don't care if you live here, you want to agree, disagree, you love the city. I'm born and raised here, so I have a love-hate relationship with the city. I love it, but I also hate it. I hate it because nobody ever does anything to change it. And when you try to ask somebody to think about the change, they'll tell you that we don't do things that way. I understand you don't do things that way. You do things a ridiculously stupid way, and we have ridiculously stupid results. That's why the average visitor that comes to Niagara Falls stays for 4 hours and they go to Canada because Canada looks way better. When you drive in, you think you're looking at this city skyline of Niagara Falls, U.S., and you realize when you get there that it's actually Canada you're looking at. And Canada's jacked. Canada does some jacked up stuff over there. I'm not defending Canada, but I will defend the Canadian Niagara Falls side because it looks aesthetically way better than our side. Way better than our side.
That'd be a great conversation to have with the mayor, I feel like. Maybe I'd consider staying in Niagara Falls.
He's not open and receptive. He represents the not open and receptive mindset of Niagara Falls. And I have no problem saying that on a public forum. I know that I've seen you friends with him, so I hope I'm not putting you in a weird spot. I know that you've been friendly with him, but I do not. He's in a long line.
I appreciate that, and everybody has to have their opinion on those people, and you're not putting me in a spot. You're allowed. This is why we have podcasts. People allowed to say what they have, and say what you have to say. Like,
I've seen enough.
I'm never gonna. I would never in this pod or any other pod tell somebody they can't say something unless it was hate speech.
Yeah, no, I would never do that. I don't
that's
know
my
him
only.
personally.
My only thing.
I
Say
don't know
what
him
you say.
personally,
Say what
so
you feel.
to attack him personally would be reckless, and I would never do that. I don't know him personally. I will never. I don't. He could be the greatest human being. And again, like I said, I don't. The guy that I met last week, maybe I just I don't like. Maybe he does. I didn't look enough into politics to know if I agree with anything he does politically. I might have a conversation with the mayor and actually like him and sit down and on a personal level and really like him. But what I see politically, and that's really all that really matters because he's in charge of the city of Niagara Falls, that I think we can all agree is not thriving. I think we all can agree on that. Whether we're friends with people or not, Niagara Falls is not thriving. It's not a thriving city by any stretch of the measure. And there's no excuse for that when you have one of the wonders of the world in your backyard and you have, again, the numbers are who knows, somewhere between 3 and 8 million, depending on who you talk to, that come to this city on a annual basis from May to October, and you cannot properly capitalize on that and make this a thriving city. That's problematic. And if you've been a mayor more than one term, that's extremely problematic. He's not the only one. There's been multiple that we've given multiple terms to, and they do nothing. And for whatever reason, I don't understand why they're just not open to these other ideas. And here we have Bitcoin. And again, it may not be the answer. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying I have the answer, but I'm saying I'm providing a different alternative to look at as a potential. You can invest the time and energy to say it's not going to work instead of saying we're not going to even look at that. Yeah. That's the problem that I have. And it isn't just with Bitcoin. It's with a lot of different ideas. We're not going to do that as the mindset instead of actually spending time and resources to see if we could do that. That's the broken mindset. And no, I would never run for politics. So don't ever
Come
say
on.
never.
I was actually considering that.
Never run for
Thinking,
politics.
you sound like you could run.
No way. Too
Awesome.
grimy of a. I would never make it. I tell things like it is.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna put a shirt and tie on and lie to people.
I'm asked all the time for run for things, and I just.
I'm gonna come in my cutoff,
just
in my workout pants, and my hat.
Yeah,
You have to, and to do that job well, for the people that do it well, and there are those people that do it well. Unfortunately, not enough of them. Most of them that do a good job get out because they either have to sell their soul or the amount of time and crap that they receive. You know, like my one friend was very active for a long time, and I thought he did a nice job. He did the best job that he could in the role that he had. But like 11 o'clock, they're calling him because the street light went out, and it's just people just don't. You know, he couldn't even go grocery shopping without getting accosted by somebody. So I think the good people either get out or they lose. Some of them lose some of them lose their soul.
It's insanely expensive
You know.
on the federal level, Laurent. I can
Yeah.
only imagine on the local level it still costs money. So in order for you to run, you have to fundraise, and when you fundraise, you have to make promises.
Yep.
And when you make promises, those promises don't always align with your personal beliefs, and it gets murky and cloudy. And I would make a lot of enemies because I would say, yeah, sure, get in office and say, fuck you to everybody else. This is how we're doing things. If you don't like it, you got 2 years to get me out of here. But I'm wrecking this thing with a wrecking ball for 2 years. Do what you want, and when next election, I ain't even running. You know what I mean?
That's what they do.
But yeah, so I mean, we got off on a little tangent, but like here we are in the city of Niagara Falls, and it just breaks my heart every time I think about it, of how we have like the power authority in
I think the point you're making, there's 1,000 examples of places that could be embracing this. And it could be a catalyst for development. And, we talk about creating wealth. Like, that's how communities are going to get rebuilt, especially older cities, whether it's Detroit, Niagara Falls, whether it's like the only way these older places are going to get better is by trying new things. And some places are. There's places that have improved significantly that I've been to over the years. And I'm like, wow, this place used to be a shithole. Wow, it's great now. And a lot of it is because eventually they have to abandon, and this is what you guys talk about every week, and that's why I enjoy like producing for you guys, is that we have to abandon the way we used to do things, whether it's finance, whether it's the way we write, way we print money in this country, like the way we do politics. Like, it's all the same stuff. It's funny because you know what this month is? You know what this month is? Everything. There's always a month. This is Financial Literacy Month.
Oh yeah, I did.
Did you
that.
see
Yeah.
that? I
No,
saw
didn't
that.
know
I
that.
was. It came up in the middle of the night when I was
Yeah, we
watching
talked about that every
CSNBC.
day.
Well, this Financial Literacy Month. I didn't. It was kind of fun, but
And we don't have it, so it's funny that
yeah,
have
we could definitely use more of it.
I didn't even know. That's crazy because I
Yeah.
didn't even know it was Financial Literacy Month.
it is.
But why isn't it on the calendar?
I was gonna tell you that. But Rich, real quick, I'll say this on the podcast. If you want and he's open to it, I think I mentioned it. I can't remember if I did or I didn't. Love to have him on the podcast and have
Yeah,
if he's open. And again, I would be completely respect. I mean, we may disagree on certain things, but I really like the conversation, and I have respect for him. So I would do my best to not try to disrespect him in any sort of way. But it was a really good conversation. If he's open to coming on the podcast, especially if he's still active in politics, like that would be a really good,
he holds a position
I
at
would
the moment.
love to hear like some behind the scenes that he could share on like, because again, I'm not in. I can only look from the outside looking in as a constituent, and I have my own perspective, and I just see things from like not behind the curtain. So to get more of a understanding of maybe why things happen the way that they do, maybe it could soften my hard stances on certain things, and also maybe change my approach, because again, you made a great point. There's a lot of cities and a lot of towns that can be affected by all this stuff. I don't live in any of those towns. I live in Niagara Falls. So as a Bitcoin proponent, maxi believer, like my duty is to try to impact my community. So if I can do that in a way, and again, I may not succeed in that, but my objective and my goal and what I should be doing is to be attempting to do that. And if I could in any sort of small way, I would love to.
I was going to say that too. Like, you're like a really great Bitcoin maxi, because you're not just, like you said, pulling up the price charts, talking about stupid technical stuff. Like, you're actually trying to make an impact in the community with asset and how much belief you have in it. So
yeah, and
I think that's really
also not going to be like, if you talk to if you go on social media and you get a textbook Bitcoin maxi, they're going to tell you I'm not a Bitcoin maxi.
Yeah,
because I'm not toxic.
Yeah.
I'm not going to like talk to you like, if you don't agree with what I'm saying, you're like lower than low. Like you don't even get an opinion. You're just an idiot. Like, and I think Bitcoin suffers with the toxicity. And again, 95% of what they believe in and they say and they think, I also think and believe. The delivery is very important. And the jobs that I've done in both education and counseling prior to finance has allowed me to understand, if you want to impact people, you can't talk down to them and push them down. You got to pick them up to your level and allow them to see what you see.
Yeah.
If you talk past them and you don't ever bring them up to where you're at, if you can't grab their hand and like let them look out the window and show them what you see, they're never going to see it. You can't tell them this is what you need to see and then push them away so they can never look through the glass. Now, if they look through the glass and they don't see it, nothing you can do about that. But you have to give them the opportunity to see it. And if you don't have good, genuine discourse with people that you disagree with, why are you even like when you turn on CNN and Fox News and you see two assholes arguing on each other? It's like, this is nonsense. And so much of the population loves that, and that's why they stay dumb. That's why they stay sheep. That's why they stay plugged into the matrix, and they love that dumb shit. I'm not for it. When I look at the screen, I see the numbers and I see the green. That's what I see when I see the matrix. I don't see I don't want to see that nonsense. I don't want to see two blowhards yelling at each other. And then when I engage in something, there might be somewhere where I'll get a little loud, but I'm going to do it in a respectful way, and I want to see your side. And I will keep an open mind and allow myself to change in a position or to change how I feel about something, even though it may seem like and a lot of people say this, I'm very opinionated, and they almost think I love to debate. I like to learn new information, and I want to pull that from you. I want you to teach me something. I'm going to try to teach you something, but I want you to teach me something. So if I disagree, I'm going to tell you why I disagree, and it's your job to get me to see it your way. And if you can't do that effectively, that's on you, not on me. And it comes across crass sometimes, and I understand that, and I recognize it's partly a weakness, but that's the way that you discourse with people. Like, it will be a back and forth, but I'm gonna love you at the end. Like, I have hardcore liberal friends, I have hardcore MAGA friends, and I think both ideologies are completely whacked out. And I have good friends on both those sides, and I will have conversations with those guys, and we'll hug it out at the end.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that you're an idiot and the way you believe, but we'll hug it out at the end.
Yeah.
And you can tell me I'm an idiot, and it's all good, all love. On that issue, we disagree, and we'll try to get each other to see certain ways. And at the end, dude, let's go.
But
go to the gym.
But that's healthy because
Pump some iron after.
there's so many people, I won't say their names, but if you don't have their viewpoint, then they straight up won't even like acknowledge you as a human. Like, they won't even like talk to you. Like, at least you can hug it out and have that friendly relationship, keep politics aside, which is hard to find nowadays. You know, people are so divided. It's really hard to keep those differences aside, but still, you know, love each other for who they are. You know what I mean? Kind of. It's just like, it's crazy.
We're getting
And
close.
I don't think it was ever like that. Was it that bad, or is it the
What do you
worst
mean?
it's
What
ever
is what
been?
that bad?
Like how divided people are with
No,
their
it's never
political
been
view.
this bad.
It's
never
worst?
been this bad.
Yeah.
You can look up online. You can look up. There's a chart that'll show you how Congress has voted since like the 1950s. It'll have red and blue, and you'll see like it all meshed together in the 50s, like this in the 60s, like that in the 70s, like that in the 80s, 90s, and today it's like this.
Yeah, I
It
truly.
was talk radio in the 90s when Clinton did what he did.
Social
That's
media
when it all really
social
started.
media
And
has
I'm
really
not blaming
exacerbated it.
talk radio per se, but because of what happened in politics, and then there was a Republican investigating, was it like Kenneth Starr or whatever? And that was when CNN and MSNBC and Rush Limbaugh and all these guys were all starting to make names for themselves, and they all just like, this is what I'm going to be, and this is what I'm going to be, and then they all it got worse and worse and worse from there. And one of my mentors said to me, like, during the 90s when all that was happening, I was very young in my education career, and he was a super smart dude, and we were talking about like politics, and he said, we don't have politics anymore, and it's only going to get worse. He said, because at the end of the day, all politics is you guys, if you disagree on something, you guys have to sit down and you have to say what you want. You have to say what you want, and then you got to find some place in the middle. And nobody wants to find some place in the middle anymore. Nobody wins in a negotiation. Nobody gets everything they want. I don't care if you're negotiating a peace treaty, selling a house. I don't care what it is. Like, nobody gets everything that they want. It's all, but nobody wants to negotiate anymore. Nobody wants to give a little bit, and that's where we are.
Programmed.
Yeah, we're getting close to the end. I promised the viewers that I would end on a controversial take,
Okay.
so I'm going to do it. So hopefully I can make this quick and not drown it out and go too much over our time. But I have a thesis on this World War III threat.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay. I have evolved into a position where I really believe. And I want to shout out a buddy of mine who hopefully will watch this at some point. He's working right now, so he's probably not watching it live. My buddy Chuck, like he's my conspiracy theorist bud. He loves the conspiracy theorists, and he's like, dude, World War III is like around the corner. Like he's just like, this is it. Like, we're going to war. Like, this is my thesis on World War III, and I've been evolving into basically getting there, and I think I finally have solidified what I feel about it. I think we can all agree war is extremely profitable, right? Perpetual wars are profitable. We've been making money in this country through wars for the last 2+ decades. Like, that's undeniable. I think that the actual odds of World War III ever happening are close to zero. I don't think World War III. I think it would have already happened. I think if we were gonna get World War III, we would have got it. I think after World War II, with the advancement of technology, the people that really call the shots, not the presidents of all these, the real global elites that call the shots, realized that the constant threat of World War III is extremely profitable. keeping the people worried that World War III could occur is way more profitable than World War III ever actually occurring. Because what happens if World War III occurs? The planet's getting annihilated. They've run so many simulations. Like, that first nuke goes off, dude. They've literally, it's like 75% of the population is wiped out. That's not profitable for nobody. And these global elites, if for nothing else, they are capitalists. And they have figured out, which I think I figured out, that World War III, 99% likelihood of it happening, of not happening. So like maybe 1%, where somebody just gets reckless and hits the button. And I mean, nothing's 100. I think that we are in a state of fear in many areas. Fear is driving many areas. We just talked about investing. I think the fear and the threat is what exists, and it's a facade. I don't think it's real. And I really got there 100% on Saturday when I saw them rockets, and the way that they were talking in the media, and then I saw behind the scenes that there was a leaked report that the U.S. had asked Iran if Israel could send some rockets and they would blow those out of the sky just to show that it's like these dudes are doing it right out in the open now. That they are pulling the wool over everybody's eyes, and it's the man behind the curtain just showing you that, oh, we got to be worried about, everybody's got to be scared about World War III. And the threat is what exists, but that's all that it is a threat. Because Ukraine and Russia could have popped it off. I mean, going into Afghanistan, like there's so many events that coulda, woulda, shoulda popped everything off, and everybody just has restraint? Or is there some sort of like backroom deal of the people that actually control things are like, you are the guy out there as the figurehead, but nobody's ever pushing that button.
That was really
because look at it. Putin's insanely wealthy. Anybody that's ever the president is insanely wealthy here, along with Congress. Zelensky's getting paid. Everybody that ascends to power in any of these countries that are public servants are getting insanely wealthy. So everybody in the world understands the model, the economic model of like what this all looks like and keeping that facade alive. But after World War II, when we realized that we can't do this again, we can't blow up half the world again, and then technology really advanced, and I think they had a sit-down conversation, and they're like, the technology exists where we cannot do what we did in 1917, in 1945, because we're going to blow this whole planet up, and everybody we're not printing money the way that we were printing money doing it this other way. And then they got off the gold standard in 71. They're like, oh, we're really rocketing this bitch off. We are rocketing this bitch off.
Oh, that's actually makes sense.
So look
at China. So like people get worried about China. Okay, China is not. I mean, sure, there's elements of China that is communism and socialist in nature, but economically they are capitalists without a doubt. How much money do countries owe them? So are you going to blow up? Are you going to send nukes at a country that owes you $20 billion or whatever you don't blow up your customers. You don't blow up your customers. Like, you just tanked your entire economy if you kill a bunch of people. That type of stuff. Russia is not the Soviet Union. Soviet Union was socialist. Putin and all the oligarchs that got kicked out of everything when they invaded Ukraine, those guys are all capitalists. They own soccer teams and corporations and houses all over the world. And all these guys and women, because there's women in this too, there is like, how much money can we get into our budget for Halliburton and other to me, the only thing that's, when I was watching like the shots, of the drones flying to Israel from Iran, I said, well, first of all, the Iron Dome's going to take care of most of it, and it's a show. Iran was putting on a show that we were mad that you bombed Syria and killed some of our officials, so we're going to do this. You're going to knock them down, and it is a proportional response. And the market likes to freak out because what's it going to do to gas prices? That's really what that was in my mind. Like,
I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. I think I've said that. I'm not a fan. However, the threat that he poses is the fact that what I just said, I believe he believes. So when you see him talking reckless,
Yeah.
he knows it's all a game. He knows this shit ain't real. So when he's out there hobnobbing with Putin, Putin knows what time it is too. Putin's worth you don't even know. We think he's worth 200 million. He's probably worth over $1 billion.
Oh, absolutely.
You think he's gonna risk that? These dudes are scumbags, bro. If nothing else, they're scumbags. They are not gonna do anything that's gonna risk the bank account. And Trump understands that. So I think they don't like the fact, and he does talk reckless, and a lot of that is a lot of the things he says are some of the reasons why I don't really like him. But the one thing I will say is he is a threat to this entire system because he says whatever he feels because he knows this is all bullshit. There is no he's out there hobnogging with Kim Jong Un. He's hugging it. He's making out with Putin. Like we never did that stuff. He's like, dude, what's up? Like, let's go have a beer because this is all bullshit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I really like that. Yeah, I think this was a really productive call we had. We dived into the Bitcoin halving, how Bitcoin prevents war, a little bit of political, but for the most part, I think this was very productive. I think we can get some really good content.
the politics might have lost some of our followers.
It's okay. Before we finish up here, do you have any advice? Because I have something I want to say. Nothing crazy. But do you have any advice for people that are on the sidelines or that are in the space that are maybe a little bit worried? Just keep them knowing that everything will pan itself out.
You got to do the work. There's no advice I can give you. You got to do the work. Either you get Bitcoin or you don't. There's no in between, and that's what we're seeing on Twitter. Like the guys that are in between, they don't get it.
Yeah.
So the guys that are they think they're Bitcoiners, they think they can handle and stomach all this volatility. They quickly realize they can't, and it's only because they haven't done the work. They haven't gone down the rabbit hole. They don't understand what Bitcoin is. They're still in the fiat mindset. They're still married to the price, and the price is what drives them, not what this represents. So if you don't understand what Bitcoin is and what Bitcoin represents, there's nothing I can tell you at this point, if you're sitting on the sidelines, that's going to help you. The only thing you could do is the thing that's going to cost you nothing but time.
Yeah.
Invest the time into understanding, reading, consuming as much as you can about what Bitcoin is, what Bitcoin does. Read the white paper. Listen to some people that speak eloquently about it. If you're not going to do those things, stay on the sidelines.
Yeah. And I have to add to that, this is the time that you want to learn. This is the time where you want to dive down the rabbit hole and educate yourself. Again, like when the price was at 75K, like 74K, you're probably a little discouraged, feeling like you missed the boat. The ship hasn't left yet. Everyone has time. The time you need to do is take the time to do the research and, like you said, understand what you're invested in. But yeah, I'm really super bullish for the end of the year. I mean, this little shakeout was, like I said, the weak separating the money to the strong hands. So I'm excited for the end of the year. It's hard for me to talk. I got this Invisalign, can you tell?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's really all I had to add. And stay diligent and trust the process.
We crested 64.
64.
While you were talking, it's at 63,978 right now.
Oh, dog with hat. Let's go.
All right, we'll end.
Wait, I gotta say one more thing. Dog with hat, the #1 meme coin on Solana. It's a dog with a hat. So when Elon Musk sends a rocket to the moon with Dogecoin, what do you think is gonna happen with all the other Dogecoin memes?
This is hurting my ears.
This is the best asset in the world. Nah, just kidding. All right, we'll end it there.
Don't trust, verify.
Don't trust, verify.